We have some breaking news here out of Japan. Yoshitaka Kitao, the CEO of SBI and the Treasurer of the United States, Scott Bessent, had discussions about Ripple and how Japan could boost U.S. economy via financial services. Now you have the Treasurer of the United States and the CEO of SBI talking about Ripple and XRP. Yes, sir. I want to hear all about that. Let's jump in. I'm also going to give you a ton of information about what's going on with Ripple XRP in Japan. I think it's a great update video. I want to thank Crypto Erie for putting this together. She covers Japan and XRP, one of the best in the space. I really appreciate her time. And so I just want to give credit where credit is due. Let's go.
XRP のリップルラボの 9%. That's huge って言ってたよ。
Ripple Lab 9% is owned by us, and he said that that is huge. So in each country around the world, the digital assets system as well as the regulation is put in place. And Scott Bessent, with him, Treasury Secretary, that we have discussed a lot. And Genius Act is now approved, signed into law by President Trump. And therefore, there is quite a great law when we pursue the digital assets in the United States. And there are protection of consumers and also regulatory authorities function it to be enhanced in this area going forward. And also how to prevent the money laundering and how to secure international competitiveness of US dollars and the position as a reference currency. Number 5 is really critical for the United States. And that's why we are trying to support. Well, I said the other day that there is something that we can contribute to. Of course, manufacturers were signing many agreements, how much they're going to invest in the United States and what activities that they're going to do in the United States that will help the United States a lot in increasing the employment. But we in financial services is to bring liquidity or finances available in Japan to the United States. So 2,300 trillion yen of Japanese consumers' assets will be delivered to the United States, and a joint venture strategy that we have been exploring has been explored through the major players so far. And that is one way of trying to support the United States. And also how much SBI transactions where the U.S. market is making. And that is also an important factor as well. So it is not just a manufacturing where Japan should contribute. And I said to the United States the other day, Scott, that it should not be just manufacturing, but it should be the financing service as well. And Scott fully understands because he's from the financing industry and that they are highly evaluating the stablecoin. And among others that I talked about, Ripple Lab, 9% is owned by us. And he said that that is huge. So we are the large shareholder, and that is a great factor. And as for the circle, we are giving the cornerstone investment for technical development. And Treasury, where Ripple is going to establish, so to the billion group where we've invested.
So many thoughts here. You just saw the U.S. take a stake in American companies like Intel. What if the U.S. makes a play to take a stake in Ripple? I mean, is this so crazy to think about? You have Scott Bessent in the UK when Ripple's in that meeting. You have Scott Bessent and Yoshitaka Kitao in Japan talking about Ripple and XRP. Do you see a pattern here? Anywhere Scott Bessent is going, Ripple is there or being brought up. That means XRP being at the core of everything that Ripple does is being brought up. Pay attention. They're not talking about Ethereum. They're not talking about Bitcoin. They're talking about the future of financial services, and Ripple Labs is mentioned over and over again. I cannot make this any more clear to you. This is getting spicy. I had my serious face, and this is my crazy face. All right, let's focus. Ripple and SBI maintain one of the deepest alliances. So let's learn about what Ripple's doing in Japan, because there's a lot of people that don't know, and let me just update you. Ripple and SBI maintain one of the deepest alliances between a blockchain company and a traditional financial institution, demonstrated by joint ventures, equity ownership, and the integration of XRP and stablecoin products into Japan's financial infrastructure. SBI and Ripple partnership, SBI Holdings is a major shareholder in Ripple and also holds XRP tokens directly, giving them double exposure. Unlike most partners, making SBI a uniquely powerful ally. So what's best for Ripple here is best for SBI, since they own not only Ripple shares, but a large share of XRP. The SBI Ripple Asia joint venture is responsible for deploying Ripple's payment technology across Japan and other Asian regions, powering instant cross-border transfers for banks and money services using Ripple and XRP. SBI Remit, an SBI subsidiary, utilizes XRP as a core bridge for international remittances from Japan to countries like the Philippines, Vietnam, and Indonesia. Under Yoshitaka Kitao's leadership, SBI has advocated institutional use of XRP and blockchain, driving regulatory clarity for crypto and stablecoins in Japan. I would say that SBI has been a leader in the Japanese banking system, pushing crypto adoption. So my hats off. Thank you so much to Japan for doing this, as well as Yoshitaka Kitao and SBI, all the people working there. Ripple, XRP, and stablecoins. Japan is Ripple's most active market globally, accounting for over half of the company's on-demand liquidity transactions. So you can see that it's being massively used here in Japan already, proving the model across the world. Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin is a US-backed institutional grade asset with monthly third-party assertions that will be exclusively distributed by SBI VC Trade in Japan starting Q1 2025, leveraging the country's established stablecoin regulatory framework. The RLUSD launch aims to provide banks and institutions a compliant way to utilize stablecoins for settlement trade and bridging activities, especially in corridors linking US dollar and the Japanese yen. SBI Ripple Asia is developing additional XRPL powered platforms, including NFT-linked payment systems and potential launches of yen-pegged alternatives such as RL Yen. And then it talks about an FSA for reviews for proposals for stablecoins denominated in Japanese yen. Recent industry news signals Japanese banks are expected to adopt XRP for payments by the end of 2025. And it does see some key connections here, but a lot of them I've already mentioned. Now, if you're wondering kind of what this looks like, let me just show you a picture of this, right? Ripple is going out into the world, and you're going to see a bunch of different versions of a stablecoin on the XRP ledger. So you're going to see RL USD, you're going to see RL Yen, RL Great British Pounds, RL CNY, RL Brazilian Real, RL Euro, RL CHF, and so on and so on. And imagine 100 different, whatever, how many currencies there are in the world that are used for everyday trade, you're probably going to see a version of a stablecoin on the XRP ledger to help facilitate all of this. And of course, you're going to need XRP in the middle of all of that to facilitate all of that trading. Now, Paul Barron did cover a portion of some of this stuff back, maybe like 6 months ago. So I did want to play a little bit of this before I get into some other visuals.
Japan, you have to think about SBI. SBI is one of the biggest companies out there. And one of the reasons why is their commitment and has been behind Ripple. And they continue to grow. They currently hold 9% share based on their actual holdings of XRP. Their stockholders are saying, hey, don't sell the XRP, our stock will go down. We need to get more, so the stock continues to rise. So a lot happening right there. And then if you look at their CEO, every bank in Japan will use Ripple's XRP by 2025. Now, I don't know if they're referencing end of 2025 or what was, but this was a big headline that they've been touting for quite some time.
Now listen, I think every bank in Japan will have the option to use XRP, right? But will they use XRP is still the question. We've seen 80% of Japanese banks will use XRP. I guess we will find out here very soon if these headlines are accurate or maybe if they're a little bit hype. It's still to be decided.
All right, so this FinTech Summit happened just the other day, and you can take a look at some of the speakers here. One of the key speakers is the digital minister who, by chance, had met with Brad Garlinghouse right there. If you take a look, met in Tokyo this week. Their leaders are committed to advancing crypto and blockchain technology. So you can see there is clear connection of what's happening within the Japanese regulators and also with what's going on with Ripple in general. I want to also go over to this right here because this is another thing that's happening, and this is Sony's bank. All right, let's go over to another article. This was from You Today, and it's talking about Ripple meeting with the Japanese officials, and a couple of points within this. This was back in September, but if you look further in here, this is where they were meeting specifically with Tyra. Right there. So you can kind of see that this has been planned for some time. And they were talking about a project, if you further on down in the article, this program will be titled Project PAX. So it's going to be run by Progmat, Data Chain, Toki.
I think this was a bunch of different clips rolled into one by XRP drop. So I just like, if it broke up there, that's the reason. And then, you know, if you're kind of wondering how all of this works, you know, there's also some other things happening with SBI, Ripple, Cas Laurens, institutional investors, crypto asset exchanges. Here's a good visual of kind of how all this works for Evernorth and the investment into that, because that SBI was one of the investors. And then, of course, here's some of the distribution about, these are some of the models that SBI shows their investors and their customers. And there's so much going on. You can see Chainlink is mentioned here, Ripple's mentioned here, XDC is mentioned here. Japan and XDC have also done a whole lot of work together as well. And, you know, I'm not going to read all of this stuff to you guys, but if you want to pause it and take a look, we've talked about this before, and I've actually shown you this video before, but this talks about Japanese banks, a consortium of Japanese banks ready to use XRP. Check it out.
So now what we are doing in Japan is we created a consortium of more than 50 banks to come together to develop a completely new payments platform or infrastructure powered by Ripple's distributed ledger technology, which basically replaces the existing domestic payments system called the Zenkin system. It also can be applied for cross-border payments as well.
And that contrasts with Zelle, which is a fantastic enterprise.
Exactly.
It's built on the existing rails.
Existing rails, yeah, that's right.
All right. And then here is the list of those banks that she just mentioned. As you can see, you know, I'm not from Japan. Actually, I've never been to Japan, so I don't know how big or small each one of these banks is. But if you are in the audience and you're listening and you know, this is one of your banks, let us know down below maybe a little bit about that. But as you can see, SBI is on here, as well as a ton of other banks. And there's only a few hundred like total banks. Like in America, we have, you know, the JP Morgan Chases and the Bank of Americas and the Wells Fargo, and they have, you know, thousands of branches all across the United States, and I'm sure globally as well. In Japan, I think there's only a few hundred of these specific banks, and then they have all their branches across Japan. All right. And then, of course, this was the picture, one of the pictures too here, Brad and the Ripple team. Here's Monica Long here and meeting with SBI Group. And, you know, this is getting really fun. And of course, we have the information about Evernorth. We did talk about that. And yeah, I also, if you're seeing this video and you haven't seen the complete update about what's going on with Franklin Templeton and Grayscale, I did a full complete video. So if you're watching this at the same time, this could come out before or after that video. Go take a look at that. There's a lot of exciting things around the ETF buzz. A lot of XRP starting to disappear off of exchanges and OTC desks. Only question is, how much left can they buy off the open market before they have to start accumulating that 3 billion XRP that's left? Once that's gone, ladies and gentlemen, we might reach the point where we can all say we can retire. That's the goal here, right? That is the goal. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm Crypto Sensei. It's always an honor to spend this time with you. If you got any value, you can like the comment. You can like the comment. You can leave a comment. You can like the video. You can share it with somebody you know. But just thank you for being here. I'll see you next time.